Hey, Fluff.
All right. So, guys, the dogs are taking over today's live stream. John and I are just going to sit back, let the discussion unfold between the two dogs, and you guys are going to learn a lot. So, thanks for coming on. John, tell us, everybody, the name of your nice dog there.
This is Kenzie, and she is primarily she is a schnauzer, but she's a little bit of a poodle, so she's like kind of like a schnoodle. And she's 8 years old,
Uh
and we
huh.
got her as a rescue, and she is one special pup. Hey, can you show people how you give me a schnug? Can I have a schnug, please? Give me a schnug. Oh, thanks.
Aw,
That's a
that's very
nice.
nice.
That's a nice schnug there, pup.
That's a nice snug.
That's
Me
called the
too.
schnug. Good job.
What do you think about Kenzie? All right, cool. Well, we got people on.
All right, cool. Hello, everybody.
Hopefully, you're snuggled up with your dog, or your cat, or your turtle as you're watching this. And we're going to get into what are we going to be discussing today with tennis?
Well, we're going to really review the five, key things that I think that we as tennis players need to improve and develop to achieve our full potential in the sport we love so much, and also sustain, the time that we can play. I think that we all want to play for a lifetime, and we have to create a plan that enables us to do that, to not only play better but also play longer. And I think that's just so important to all of us who love the sport. So we want to play as long as we possibly can. So we'll talk about that as well.
That is great. I love that. I love that. That's awesome. So, guys, as you come on in, first of all, I want to thank you guys for spending your lunch hour with us. We really appreciate that. And I know it's going to be worth your while. And we have on here John Craig with us, who is a master pro and coaching out in California. And he's great at what he does. Mark, this guy is great at what he does. This guy is totally obsessed. By the way, Mark, I saw your serve video. I will review it the next couple of days that you sent me. But all I can say is the serve was huge. Like the second serve that you sent on the ad side, I mean, that thing went so high in the fence. That's probably bigger than a lot of my serves I hit. So, dude, like you're progressing so amazingly. He really does a great job. So that's what this is about. It's for totally obsessed tennis players figuring out how they can get better, how they can play better and play longer. I like that. So
Absolutely.
why don't you take us through one of the keys and we'll just keep moving through this.
Well, again, I think that, some of this may be redundant because if you're a passionate tennis player, you've been studying the game and working on your skills for a long time. But I think, first of all, and it kind of goes back to the great Welby Van Horn, who was a tennis master who developed a lot of players in the 60s. And, he always put it in order. And he said, you got to get your strokes in order, because if you can have the greatest strategy in the world and you can be fit, you can have all these things. But if you don't have strokes to support your tactics and strategy and all this, then you're not going to be able to play and successfully and be able to adapt to situations and problem solve. So get your strokes and get your fundamentals in order. So I think that's key, is to get your fundamentals in order. And what surprises me is a lot of people are probably thinking, well, and I do have my fundamentals in order. I feel like I know my fundamentals, but a lot of people don't. I mean, I think that, a lot of people think they do, but they probably really don't. And that's sort of where, under pressure in match situations, doubts enter in, and then we hesitate, and then we don't perform well. Because if you really understand your fundamentals and your strokes are really embedded, then you don't even think about them. They're really automatic, and therefore, under pressure, you play with confidence, and you have self belief. But that the lack of stroke production and real belief is a hindrance to performing at your best. And I have a quote here from John Wooden. I think most of us know who he is, and he basically said he believed in fundamentals before creativity. And what that means is that he said he believed in coaching fundamentals until they're executed quickly, properly, and without conscious thought, which is a prerequisite to playing the game. Drills must be created so that all the fundamentals are taught to the criterion, the players execute them automatically. In his words, learning and drilling created a foundation on which individual initiative and imagination could flourish. So,
Hmm.
it's hard as tennis players because we're out wanting to play matches every week, and we're trying to combine, how to improve and get better and maybe get technically better while we're still trying to win matches. Guess what? So are the pros on the tour, and they even have less time in a way to actually, make changes. But I think we have to figure out how to partition time where we can assess first of all what we need to work on, then partition time where we're going to say, okay, for a month I'm going to work on my skills, rather than trying to blend match play and winning matches that we care about with actually improving our skills. Um, I've seen a lot of cases where players are trying to do both, and you default into match play with the habits you bring to the match and the things that you trust, and it's very difficult to execute. So partitioning time is really important, and then I think really having an accurate assessment of your skill set is so critical, and then really work on those fundamentals and know what they are. And that's a deeper topic, and we can go into some of those fundamentals. And I think that every coach has their sort of set of fundamentals in the way they teach them. And I think you have to find a coach that you resonate well with, makes sense to you, and then you really work on this journey together till you really feel like you have your fundamentals in order.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to thank people for coming on. We have about 60 people on right now, which is really cool, which I think is great for Friday lunch hour. So I just want to thank you guys. Let you know that I'm sure I speak for John when you guys are my favorite students I've ever taught. You guys are all in, totally obsessed, amazing learners. So I want to go through, I want to get because most of the people on here, they're adults. We're not talking to juniors. They're usually over 30, many between 40 and over 80. That's who's listening to us right now. So, and mostly between 3.0 and 4.0. I don't think Carlos Alcaraz is tuning in, although you never know. So when it comes to the most important fundamentals, and we'll see, maybe we'll be in total agreement, or we might have a little bit of a debate, So what do you think when it comes to fundamentals? What are the key fundamentals that people from 3.0 to 4.0 should focus on the most to get the biggest bang for their buck, in your opinion?
I love that. That's a great question. And I'm sure that's probably the question that's running through a lot of people's mind. What does John think the fundamentals are? And let me just say that I'm in your age group. I am 65, and I've been playing tennis since I was in my early teens. So I've been through the whole journey. And I think that when we're talking about preserving our bodies, it's really important. So good fundamentals also support the longevity. Good fundamentals really start with being balanced. I think if we look at good tennis players, they look good when they play. And the reason why is they have great posture, and they're able to sustain and maintain that posture and keep their bodies in an alignment that not only generates power, but maintains control and reduces the chances of injury. So it's real important that you understand good athletic posture and you sustain that and maintain that as much as possible. That allows you to really, implement and sustain and develop good fundamental stroke technique. But you've got to have a good athletic posture. Just look at, Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, Alcaraz, whoever, and they stand up and they have a wide gait and they have an athletic posture. And if they stay in that posture, it's hard to beat them. Okay, you're trying to break down their balance. You're trying to take them out of their balance where they can produce more errors and hit weaker shots. So theoretically, if I'm playing against Pete and he can't break my balance and get me out of my posture, theoretically he can't beat me. I can beat myself by making poor decisions, making bad shots, but he's not getting me into trouble. He's not getting me into emergency situations. So that's the first key fundamental to me, is learning how to stay balanced. Now, how do you do that? Well, you do that by having good footwork. So it really does kind of, dovetail into working on athletic skills that we'll talk about a little bit more first, a little bit later, but we'll talk about the stroke techniques now. But you really got to understand that you're going to start in a posture and you're going to try to maintain it. Okay. So any thoughts on that, Pete, you want to throw in there?
Well, absolutely. First of all, I have thought about this a lot and go, really, especially at the highest level, but even at the lower levels, it's a game of balance. So where, and the better your technique gets on different skill sets, it truly becomes a game of balance. Because if you don't have, you have like fundamentals is so, it can be taken a million different ways. Like lots of people hear fundamentals and yes, balance and footwork is a fundamental. Other people would say, I thought he was going to talk about a topspin forehand or a kick serve or things like that. And so I think then it comes down to, if we're talking about strokes as part of the fundamentals, your fundamentals and your strokes, then I think, you have to have you have to hit certain checkpoints for the stroke to go over the net and in the court enough times to beat your opponent. Sometimes people can be perfectly balanced, but if their stroke technique, they don't have what I call racket head awareness, they can be perfectly balanced and still screw up the shot. So, so let's get into that a little bit. What are the essential strokes that if you're coaching a team, a doubles team, because let's face it, most people play doubles out here. You're coaching a 3-0 to 4-0 doubles team to win a state title. What are the strokes that you're working on the most if you've got 6 months to work with them to win?
Serves, return of serves, primarily. If for doubles, serves and return of serves. Obviously, if we tabulate points, and Craig O'Shaughnessy with Brain Game Tennis does a great job with that. If you don't see his stuff, look at it. But he tabulates the points, and the points in singles on average are fewer than 4 touches. So the points are over, and in doubles it's even sooner than that. So if you're serving well and you're returning well, you're having a great chance of winning, and those are the keys. And if you're serving well, your partner at the net's going to get an easier look at volleys, and if you're turning well, the same thing's going to happen. So those are the 2 keys. Now, most of us don't like to spend a lot of time on serves and returns for the simple reason it's not that much fun. But if you're attempting to win and your goal is to win, then I would be spending at least 50% of my time on that, and that'll help you. Okay.
First,
kind of spin back to the way I see tennis is it's a game of balance, it's a game of rhythm, and it's a game of timing. So balance is staying in a great posture. Rhythm is the flow of movement that takes you into and through shots, and then timing is how you time all that movement onto the ball. So if you just think of it that way, that you've got to maintain a balance, you've got to move in a balanced rhythmic way, and then you time that to the ball. That's what good tennis players, that's why they make it look so easy. They look so good. They have great balance, they have great rhythm of movement, and then they time that onto the ball. And that's what you're after.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit on one huge thing, and then I'm going to kind of say my thing and see what you think about it, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. First of all, I want everybody to understand, because some of the things that I'm saying, they don't necessarily need to be at the top of the list as much as you think you do. They're my favorite things to teach, and they're what I call game changers. If you're good at it, you have a very distinct advantage over a lot of people playing 3-0 to 4-0. Okay. But I think a lot of people, when they're hearing serve and return, they're thinking professional grip, professional spins, professional serving technique. And when they're thinking about returns, they're thinking about ripping balls. And so, especially with returns, because there's a lot of doubles people out there, I've been really thinking about this. I even watched Ian. I interviewed Ian yesterday from Essential Tennis. And the thing that stood out to me is there was 4 5s, and there was a lot of net exchanges and approach shots. And they did what I don't see, which I find to be the biggest fun, because I think everybody's going down the big stroke rabbit hole. And what I noticed on the video, what everybody did really well on the video, is that when the ball was hit to them and they were approaching the net, they would find the ball early and clearly with their hand, and the ball was this. You could see the ball was on a collision course with the middle of the strings immediately. And then when the ball was gone, they didn't break the wrist. Okay, they might have broken the wrist a little bit after the ball was well off their strings. And so, one thing that I think, whether you're working on a return of serve and then approaching the net, because you have a lot of opportunity between 3-0 and 4-0. Let's face it, most people who are playing are not going to be serving 120 miles an hour down the tee with a great accuracy. So if rather than everybody spending so much time dedicating to learning how to hit a topspin forehand and big backhand, which again, I still love to teach and I want you to learn, if you spent the majority of your time learning how to find a ball and don't break your wrist from the baseline to the net, and you got really good at it, I don't think you would lose a match up until a mid 4-0 range. I don't think you need one other skill. I don't even think you need if there's any grip, I'm not worried about you having a continental grip on. It's actually the serve. I think you could just pancake the serve in, get to the continental grip, and don't break your wrist next to the point, and you would dominate. What do you think about this? Do you agree or disagree?
I think that at the end of the day, we put a lot of emphasis on technique because we love to teach it, but and we have this discussion in the junior program that I run, or a big part of it at the Newport Beach Tennis Club. What is the benchmark that gets a student from one level to another? And we discuss that they have to have this grip or that grip. But the bottom line is, if their UTR hits a certain benchmark and they can execute the shots into the part of the court and show consistency. I mean, Boris Becker served with an Eastern forehand grip. But his serve was amazing, right? So would you say he was a terrible player because he didn't have a continental grip on his serve? Of course not. So I do agree with you. If you're able to execute with whatever your technical style is, and you achieve what you want to achieve, then that's okay. I think that's fine. I was going to make another point here. I'm kind of an old school player, having, being 65 and having learned in the 70s. And I was playing doubles with some of our good high school kids recently because we were doing a doubles match getting ready for a tournament. And when we were done, they said to me, it was terrible playing against you because either the ball was below the level of the net or over our heads all the time. I never hit the ball hard, really that hard. They hit harder than I do, but I never gave them an easy ball. It was either at their feet, below the level and at their feet, or over their head. And they were like, we never got a ball we wanted. And I just tore them up. And they were like, I just felt like it was ridiculous. You didn't out hit us, but you just outsmarted us. So I think you just have to think about the shots you're playing as well. Yeah, they were like bummed out. Like, this old guy's beating us. He's not even hitting hard. I was hitting the ball firm, but I was just playing smart shots. Yeah, so you got to play smart.
Yeah, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Very, very cool stuff. Yes, go ahead. You have anything?
When it comes back to the balance and keeping your posture and all those things, it goes back to footwork. And, I don't really like the word footwork because it implies work. And we're not playing tennis to work. We're playing tennis to play. So think about using your feet to play. Play with your feet, because your strokes follow your feet. And if your feet are in the wrong place at the wrong time and out of rhythm, most of the time it breaks the stroke down, breaks down the shot, and produces an error or a weak shot. So look at footwork more as play. Play tennis through your feet and make it fun to move your feet and to learn how to move your feet. And there's lots of things you can do to do that, but I think that's an essential thing. And I see so many videos that come in. I do a lot of video reviews, and invariably I look at the students doing ground strokes or volleys or whatever, and it's the footwork that's missing. That makes the stroke awkward and weird. So you've really got to understand the footwork part of it. Make it fun. Don't make it work. Make it fun.
I love that. Yeah, there's a whole, like, you're so right on that. Footwork, it doesn't mean foot speed as well. I'm sure there's, and I'm experiencing this now that I'm only 19 years old, but I'm experiencing it as being anyway. But I play with a lot of people who are now, I'm going, okay, they're definitely faster than me. I can tell they're faster than me. If we were to just race from the fence to the fence, I would probably get smoked by some of these people. But my footwork, since it was developed pretty early, and I still think about it and actually practice off the court, I go, and when I look at it on video, I do acknowledge, wow, I'm getting a lot slower, but then I'm going, my footwork is still really, really good. So footwork, it is an art form, just like developing a nice topspin forehand or a serve or a volley. And it doesn't mean running fast. It doesn't mean trying hard. It means working on your technical skills so you can, like John's saying, dance out there. So this is really, really good. Oh, we've got a question from Richard here. And guys, ask questions as you're seeing this. And if you have anything that you disagree with, if there's something I'm saying where like, I don't really like what Pete's saying there, then by all means comment and challenge us. If you have a question for John, let us know. But Richard says, what does the split step, or where does the foot splits fit into the balance and the rhythm?
That's a great question, Richard. Thanks for that. The the split step is an essential piece of the rhythm, because if you don't split step on the contact, then the rhythm is broken. And I think that's where a lot of rec players go wrong. They're stagnant on the contact on the other side, but that's really where the rhythm continues and really builds from. So if you do a bounce and your feet are in the air when the contact is made and you land and spring to the ball, at no matter what your speed is, you can be in rhythm, but you break your rhythm if you don't. And of course, in order to do a good split step, you have to have a sense of balance. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. So, I think the balance part of it becomes a natural consequence of attempting to do a split step, and then split step, it maintains or builds the rhythm as you play. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Guys, you are awesome. We have 81 people on listening to this
Fantastic.
right now.
All right.
That is really, really great.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. So, all right. So we've covered, I believe, key number 1, right? Are we up to key number 2 now, or did you have more on key number 1?
Well, I think that, we're still talking about the fundamentals, and I think that just one other comment about strokes and mistakes and so forth. And I look at, especially on ground strokes, I think of dividing the stroke in half. There are receiving skills and there are sending skills. And I often ask my students, where are the majority of mistakes made? Are they made in receiving or sending? And they almost always say, before they think about it, they say sending, because that's obviously where you see the error occurring. But the error really occurs in the receiving skill. So if you're prepared to receive the ball, then you're able to do so many things. You're able to actually plan what you want to do with it. In advance what you want to do with the ball. You're ready to time onto it. You've got rhythm. You've got all these things. But if you're not prepared to receive the ball, if your preparation skills are lacking, then the mistakes will show up in the sending part of the stroke. So receiving skills are also what make good players make the game look so easy. If we're spectators at sitting on the sideline of a court and we're watching, two really good players play, and we're watching the ball go back and forth. Every time the ball gets to the player, they're just sitting there set up waiting for the ball. And they know in advance what they want to do with it, and then they just do it nice and calmly. So make sure that your receiving skills are all constantly working on them. It's amazing how it's easy for tennis players to have to relearn the same lessons over and over again, because I've done it myself. When you fall into a slump, you just have to go back to the fundamentals. And first it's the footwork or the movement of the feet, and then the second is preparation and receiving the ball. And all of a sudden, it seems like you work your way right out of a slump pretty quickly once you just reacquaint yourself with the fundamentals, realize that you kind of took them for granted.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think you're so right on the receiving part, is that everybody's so focused. The thing about tennis is it is very technical. It is, and it's an art that you do have to develop. And so people do get obsessed with the actual stroke technique, analyzing their stroke and everything. And you can do that in golf, right? If you just really focus on the stroke, and then you kind of get a feel for the course, then that's gonna. But people are not realizing, okay, yes, the stroke's important, but the difference between golf and tennis is the ball is coming back, and it's coming to you at all kinds of different paces and spins and wind and sun and pressure. And the better you get at recognizing early and being ready to hit, there's so many people, and I know, John, we're on the same page on this, where their stroke's actually pretty good, but if you analyze them, even if you throw them a ball underhanded, they're starting to get everything moving as the ball's bouncing. Then by the time they hit, they're a little late or cramped or whatever. They don't work out the spacing to where there was actually one guy who's part of TennisCon this year who sent a video in. He did a great video, and he showed that Novak would be here and the ball would not even be at the net yet.
Right. Yeah.
Because he's seen that early. So he's right. He's doing all that receiving work super early. So by the time the ball is there, all that is left to do in the work is to pull the trigger. Right.
Yeah. 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 And so calm. You're so calm at that point. So, I think this, just to go a little further on this, receiving skills is not just physically what I'm doing. Another component of receiving skills is that once the ball is hit, is actually anticipating what the ball is going to do itself, whether it's the wind or the spin or the court surface or the angle, the speed, the height, the depth. You have to read the ball and know in advance where you need to be and when you need to get there in rhythm to play the stroke. And so receiving skills are much more than me just preparing the obvious in my body, but it's also understanding the ball that I'm receiving early. And that's
Mm-hmm.
big part of it. So anticipation is a part of this, watching their strokes as well, for sure. You're looking at it. I ask students all the time, when you play your ball and your ball's traveling the other side, what should you be looking at, the opponent or the ball? And sometimes they'll go to the ball, and I go, you don't want to look at the ball. You want to look at the big picture. What kind of position is your opponent getting into? Does it look like they're setting up to really unload, or are they going to be off balance? Are they going to be late? And you can start to see the play, and then you can anticipate from there as well. And there's really two types of anticipation in tennis. There's the one we think about, which is, where the opponent is hitting the ball. But the other one that happens every single time is just anticipating what the ball is going to do once it's played by the opponent. And we're looking, not, the other common thing that we hear is watch the ball, watch the ball. You can watch the ball all you want, but if you don't know what it's going to do, then that's not going to help you. So what I say is you need to look for the ball. And what are you looking for? You're looking for angle, you're looking for speed, you're looking for spin, you're looking for height and length. You're looking for the characteristics of the ball. Okay, now you don't sit there and go, how fast is it coming, what angle? It's your brain just calculates, but those are the things you're looking for. You're looking for the ball so you can get to the ball and play it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
so,
and then just one other thing on that I'd like to add. First of all, John, you're doing a great job. People are really liking this.
Okay.
So yeah, and guys, if you are liking this, give it a like. That'd be great. One other thing that I think, because again, we have a lot of very, I think, high functioning people who play tennis who are adults, very smart, very intellectual. And another part of sending and receiving, if you can think of it more like a boxing match, okay, to where, if you can get more into like a primal instinctive survival mode and understand when you're on offense and on defense, I think you're going to anticipate and react a lot better. Like, for example, as we're talking about this, we always think about receiving as they're hitting, but you can start to think about receiving as early as you're sending, to me. And what I mean by that is, if there's a certain ball that my eyes light up and I feel like I'm going to hit this good and I'm going to hit it over there, right? And then as I'm striking the ball, I can either start to recognize the bad news is like, oh man, I thought I was going to hit this great. I hit a crappy ball. Now all of a sudden I'm probably going to be on defense. I better start backing up almost as soon as I hit it. Or as I'm hitting the ball, I'm like, oh my gosh, this felt just as good or better than I thought it was going to feel. Now I can anticipate when I lift my eyes to the other side that, yes, that worked exactly like I thought. I am hitting it great in the corner. They're reacting late. I can even close on the net and move to that and volley. See, that's all the stuff that you want to be thinking about. Judging your own hit, you can start to already anticipate what they're going to send back by just feeling how good you're hitting the ball. So think about that as well with your sending and receiving.
Yeah. When does your preparation for the next shot begin? And a lot of players will say, when my opponent hits the ball. But my preparation for the next shot begins when I've concluded the shot I'm on.
Exactly. Because you can feel how you connected. Did you connect offensively, neutrally, or defensively? And then you can get to that spot of the court where the ball most likely is going to come.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool stuff. Are we on the fundamental number 2 or key number 2 yet? Or are we still more on number 1?
We can roll there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
There obviously are fundamentals within every stroke that you're trying to achieve. From grips and contact points and preparation and how you achieve power and control and all those kinds of things. And that's a deep topic. So I think beyond going where we've gone and really understanding that there's fundamentals, then the footwork is really the key piece. I don't think we need to get further into that. I think most everyone on here, being the tennis enthusiast that you are, you have a pretty good idea of what your fundamental skills are. But I think we could talk about the next stage here, the key, and that really is improving your athletic skills that enable your tennis foundation to perform better. And I think that there's no more evidence that what we've seen on the professional tour in the last 20 years, how fitness and how much time these players spend working on the key elements of fitness have improved tennis immensely. It's crazy how good of athletes are playing tennis these days. And I think that the more we work on those skills, we're not only going to perform better, but we're also going to last longer. And what are we working on? Well, first of all, we're working on mobility. And I see a lot of video submissions. I do hundreds of video reviews, and the common thing I see for most recreational players is their stroke technique is inhibited by their mobility. And it's not fun to work on mobility, but if your goal is to get better and also sustain your tennis career, if you will, spending time working on your mobility and your agility, your strength, flexibility, those are key things that are vital to achieving your full potential and to sustaining that potential. So
I think that's
got
great.
to work on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick little technical thing. I think you might want to hold the mic just slightly away because it's starting to kind of get like a lot of, when you hit those certain P's or whatever, you're getting a lot of feedback. But as far as the content, that's awesome. And I think it's so right in that, one thing that gets sad for me is I get a lot of emails of people who want to come to my camp, but they're hurt. And so that's just number one, is the more you're doing these little prehab things, that's probably, I think, probably the biggest change in the game is, yes, the pros are working extremely hard physically. A lot of things they do are very demanding physically, but they're definitely working smarter nowadays than harder. I mean, there was Roy Emerson was very famous for being the most fit out of the Aussies, and he used to practice. He's like, well, if you're going to play 5 sets, then you practice 6 sets. And he used to be able to do like 100 or 200 kangaroo jumps in a row, and I don't think after he was doing those, they did much prehab work to make sure that he wasn't going to, destroy his hips. And now he basically can barely walk because of, and he's been like that for a while because of how much, he's put on his body. So tennis is a game where you put a lot on your body. So the more you are taking your fitness and your mobility seriously, then you get yourself in a better position to play. And you also give yourself the opportunity to play the next day, right, John?
Yeah, and of course, all those Aussies back in those days were very fit because the great Australian coach, I forget his name. You lose my name. His name
Harry Hopman.
And I shouldn't forget that because I have a story about Hopman. I actually went to a Division I college camp at Saddlebrook back in the 80s, and actually I kind of fell into it. I just happened to be there in the area, and I had applied, but it was full. But I went there, and Hopman was there running this thing at Saddlebrook, and there were 24 players there, and we started out every day playing a half hour of mini tennis. And every 5 minutes we would rotate. We're doing up downs, and if you won your court, you moved up, and if you lost your court, you went down. Well, by 8:20, I was soaked, and he was walking around like the horsewhip, going, "Move, go, gone." And then we were all like toast in the first half hour. And then after lunch, we did the same thing again. He was a big believer in fitness, big time. Harry Hopman was huge in that. So all those Aussies were pretty fit. Yeah. And I know that Roy was certainly one of them. He lives out here in Orange County. I do see him once in a while running around.
Oh, so. He's such a great guy. And they said all the Aussies, because I got to interview, Newcomb and Laver and Fred Staley, and they all said he's the fittest out of all of us. And they were all really fit. So, yeah. All right, cool. Is there more on key number 2, or are we moving to key number 3?
No, I think we're staying on 2, and I think because the big thing that I think that we all have to monitor and get better at too is tension. I see that most players, whether I'm working with them locally or online or whatever it is, there is too much tension in our games. So we have to figure out what is a reasonable tension to have to control what we're doing, but also relax enough so that we can be fluid. So just think about how you would hold a pen to write. So I'm going to write. How softly do I hold the pen? How firmly do I hold it? I hold it just firm enough so I can control it and do what I want with it, but not so tight that I'm restricting the movement. I'm going to have a drink of water here. How firmly am I going to hold this glass of water? I'm holding it firm enough so I can control and not lose it, but I'm certainly not squeezing it. See what I'm saying? So I think you just have to measurably think about how you hold a steering wheel, hold a glass of water, and then make sure that you're monitoring your tension with the racket, because tight grips and tension is a big game killer. And I like this universal rule that I'd like to apply, and that is that when I'm holding the racket, I like to be able to feel the racket head. So let me give you an example here. Kenzie, we're still going here, but I'm going to put you down because I'm going to do something, okay? Say bye-bye. There you go. Okay, bye-bye. So as an example, let's stand up here. When I'm holding
I'm going to put you in sole layout too, so
yeah, okay,
everybody
cool.
can see you.
Yeah. So
there you go.
When I'm going to my forehand contact point, if I grip the racket really tight and I can't feel the weight of the racket head, that is too restrictive. So what I want to do is I want to soften this so that I can literally feel the weight of my racket head, and it's sort of floating in my hand, but it still has control. See that? So it's not disappearing from my hand or falling out of my hand, but it's soft enough so I can feel the weight, but firm enough so that I can control it. And that gives me the ability to have a fluid movement that has control as well. And that I like that as a universal guideline for every stroke in tennis. The serves, the volleys, everything. And some of you might be thinking, well, if I'm soft in my hand on the volley, aren't I supposed to squeeze it? You will increase your tension on your hand instinctively. You don't have to think about it. So, yeah. Okay.
All right. Well,
So
people are
that's just
liking this.
it's a great guideline. Yeah. Okay.
Mark says, "Great tip, thank you." And he
Okay.
really does mean thank you when he says it. He takes all this stuff to heart and puts it into practice. And
Yeah, and I think just
Fed
alumnus.
Fanatic says, "I like it too."
Oh, good. And now some players think, well, how do I maintain the appropriate tension, the lack of tension? And I'm a big proponent of making sure that my non-dominant hand is involved in everything I do. So my non-dominant hand is in control of the racket in ready position. It leads me into all my strokes. And even when I'm walking between points, I put the racket in my left hand so that I'm letting my playing hand, being a right-hander, have an opportunity to relax and be comfortable. So it's never overworking. So I let my left hand really help me establish and maintain the lack of tension or the appropriate tension in literally everything I do on the court. Yeah.
That is really good stuff. Guys, couple things. If you don't notice my shirt or are unaware of TennisCon, John has been part of TennisCon for all 8 years, which I appreciate. Well, so all 7 years, but he's back this year, obviously. And TennisCon is an event where we have the best instructors on the planet, like John. He's a master pro. There's not many out there in the world, literally. And I think it's like less than 1%. And he's been coaching his whole life, and he's part of it, as well as like Grand Slam champions like Gigi Fernandez. And we've had Rick Macy on and Nick Bollettieri, and we have all your favorite top online instructors being part of it. So if you haven't gotten your free ticket yet, go to tenniscon8.com to sign up, get on the early bird list. We're going to do this last week in October, to where we're going to be releasing all this amazing content. I'm also going to put all these live streams in the lifetime members area, where people can watch all the live interviews leading up to the event, as well as John Craig right here. He's got his website updated, Performance Plus Tennis. Is it performanceplustennis.com? Is that what they type in to get there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Performanceplustennis.com. It's brand new. It looks gorgeous. And look at that. He's in the secret power source. I love it. So, great stuff. Lead us. We're almost at 100. Guys, John did say we get up to 100. He would do a dance on TikTok. He was going to do the latest, coolest dance on TikTok.
Okay.
And we get to 100.
Okay.
We talked about it backstage, John.
I'm actually good with that, Peter, because there was a time when I was I took a lot of dance. I danced a lot for about 10 years, and I actually became quite accomplished at Lindy Hop. Do you know what Lindy Hop is?
I have no idea.
It's actually a very athletic, dynamic swing dance that was evolved out of Harlem in the 1930s, and it has lifts and drops and all kinds of things. But it's a very active, dynamic dance, and I danced. I played tennis by day and taught tennis by day and danced by night for like 10 years. So I got
That
pretty
is
good at it
awesome.
actually. So if I have to do a little Lindy Hop, I'll I haven't really danced for a while, but if I have to pull that out, I'll figure it out.
Well, we only got four more, and we're up there. Okay,
Yeah.
start flossing or Lindy Hop is okay, says Fed Fanatic. All right, let's get in the next thing. Are we up to 3? Are we still on 2? Where are we at?
Well, let's just talk. Let's still talk about the athletic skills.
Okay.
And I think, for a lot of us, we think about, well, what should I do? And in my personal experience, the one thing that I've done that's really helped me a lot is performing yoga. Yoga is different than a lot of people think it is. It helps your mobility. It helps your strength. It helps you calm your mind. It has so many benefits. It's not what a lot of people think is so super passive. There's definitely different levels of yoga, but if you get into a yoga program, you will definitely start to notice a big difference in your mobility, your strength, and even your calmness. So if I were going to choose one discipline, it would probably be yoga to really help me in all aspects of my life. So just a little plug there for yoga that I've had a personal experience with. So.
I like that.
And Pete, you've seen me. We did yoga at TennisCon Live a year and a half ago, and we were doing yoga, and wasn't it Robbie was running the class, right? And you.
First of all, Robbie was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And John was phenomenal. So, Robbie, if you're listening out there, you were an amazing positive instructor with tremendous flexibility. Then John was actually also very, very impressive. And then I was like a pretzel, like the butterfly stretch, like my knees were like up like that. John's were like here. Robbie was like down there. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was kind of up in front, and when we were like into the class for like 15, 20 minutes, I was hearing these funny noises from the back right side of the room. I look over, it's you and Marban back there looking at me with like,
oh,
well, you had a bad back anyway. Your back was
I have it. Oh yeah.
So
I have a bad. It's like every day bad back. But
okay.
Actually, I feel good. I feel good right now. Good. All right, cool.
Okay,
what else are we up to? Keep going.
As far as that, athletic skills do work on that and really make, and I think the other part about yoga too was it will help you reduce your tension. So that's really, really important to be monitoring your tension. Next up is really the mental game. And, a lot of coaches, like myself included, we work on the things that we can see. But I think we all agree that tennis is so mental. And if Pete and I are playing a match and we're very similar in, our UTR skill level, whatever, it's really going to boil down to the decisions we make and our ability to stay loose, stay confident, stay on task, be tactical, problem solving, and make good decisions. And it's going to be mental. I mean, we're not going to, it's really comes down to that. And so we have to work on our mental skills and not avoid them. So, Jeff Greenwald is a very good mental coach. He's got an online program. Jeff is actually coming to our club next month. He's going to do a couple workshops for both our juniors and our adults. And I would just say, invest in some mental training to really improve that part of your game, because that's certainly a pathway to really achieving your full potential as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Jeff Greenwald is very good. And one thing that I like that he talks about that can tap into the mental and the physical. I think a lot of times if you can get your mind and body to be on the same page, that can provide a lot of relaxation and then therefore build confidence. Because one of the things that kind of I think freaks us out is when we feel tight. And I love that he talks about embracing the tension, especially in between points. Like if you're feeling tight, okay, well, instead of just like telling yourself, relax, because a lot of times when we feel tight, we're like, relax, take it easy, calm down. Like that's when we're just getting more and more nervous. He said, feel your racket and grab it as tight as you can for 10 seconds. I love that tip. That's helped me so much in some nervous matches. And then like all of a sudden your whole arm is relaxed, and your whole body feels relaxed, and your mind kind of calms down. And most points, like Craig O'Shaughnessy says, ends within 4 points, 4 balls. So sometimes you just hit the first ball or two good, it like sets you right for the rest of the point. So even if the point goes
Mm.
over 4 balls, you kind of feel like, all right, I feel the ball again. You know, I think that's maybe one of the biggest fears. Let me know if that's, I know it is for me. I think one of the biggest fears in tennis is losing the feel of the tennis ball. That to me, that's been maybe my biggest mental fear out in a match. Like, I hope I just don't get so nervous that I don't feel the ball. So when I hit it, I have like no idea where it's going to go. Have you ever experienced that feeling or thought?
Yeah, or that experience, the experience of just feeling lost out there, like you can't control the ball, your strokes feel terrible, you're nervous and tense, and you're just lost. You're like in a cloud somewhere. And I think that's really where we have to get skillful at being able to problem solve and assess, and then have tactics that we employ that help us sort of reset and get back on track. And obviously, maybe gripping the racket tight could be one of them. Even just shadow stroking between points is a good one. Maria Sharapova used to shadow stroke between points. She'd go to the back fence and just feel her strokes a couple of times. And you see pros do that all the time. They'll miss a shot and they'll replay the shot and try to make it feel the way they wanted it to feel. So, I think that's real important that we have, a process for righting our ship, if you will, when we're on the court and we're having a bad day. How do we change that? How do we get back on track? And there's just different things that we can do. And the other thing about yoga is breathe, take some deep breaths, namaste, relax. I think that the other thing is that the mental challenges that we face are the exact same mental challenges that the top players in the world face. They're just better at dealing with them because they're coping with them at higher level. They've been through more experience, but they're still dealing with the tension. And we even hear that the US Open final, in the beginning, they were nervous, they were tight, right? And we saw tightness. So it's you can never get rid of it. It's just how you learn to deal with it and then manage it during matches, which is so important. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Are we up to number 4?
Well, mental skills, mental skills,
Okay.
mental skills. So, I think that, let's just take a look here and see. I think that the other thing that we know we have to do, and this is hard again, and this goes all the way back to the inner game of tennis and Timothy Galloway and yoga, is your breath is ever present. So when you're struggling, just relax and focus on your breath, and that brings you back to the moment. Because oftentimes we're in matches and we're either winning the match and we're thinking, like, God, I'm going to win this match, or you're losing this match, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this match. Either one of those scenarios means you're out of the moment, which means you're not concentrating on taking care of business in the moment, and you're not going to play well. So learning how to stay in the moment and staying relaxed and loose is critical to performing point by point. See that? Shot by shot even. So really important. Yeah.
100% agree with that, for sure.
Yeah, and and at the recreational level, I think it's interesting because, and I work with a lot of juniors as well, and they put so much pressure on themselves to win matches, and at the same time, I just say, what at the end of the day, what does it really matter? I mean, you're going to play this tournament tomorrow on Saturday, and then on Tuesday, you're going to be thinking about it whether you win or lose. Probably not. You're going to just move on, and it's a bump in the road if you lose, and it's an experience if you win, whatever. But it's in the big grand scheme of things, it's not. Don't put so much importance on it that you inhibit your ability to perform. Right? It's a tennis match. We're playing tennis for fun because we like being out there. You'd be sailing if you wanted to be sailing, whatever it is you'd be doing. But your activity is tennis because you love tennis. So go out there and play with joy. Go out there and play because you love being out there, and try to take the pressure off that you have to win a match, because you don't have to win the match. It's not. We're not playing at Wimbledon. We're not playing for $3.7 million for the final of the US Open. So enjoy your time out there. And I think that's really what it's all about, is having fun out there. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I am gonna put one thing out there too, and be interesting to see what you think as well. So, I think also we freak out because we get afraid. We get nervous. We have all these feelings of excitement and anxiety. And I also think, like, okay, if we can also learn to not be afraid of being afraid, then we will play better. There's nothing wrong in my mind. I mean, you can tell yourself all day, hey, it's just the game. I don't really care. Like, it's just Tuesday will come around. But then when game day comes around, you're going to be nervous. You're going to have butterflies. You're going to be a little afraid. And you know, we pay money to be afraid. We go into a haunted house. We go to a scary movie. We do a lot of things. We jump off a darn plane to be a little afraid. Like, we like being afraid as humans. So tennis is another thing that makes us a little afraid. It's like, how am I going to do today? Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Is my forehand going to be on or off? Is my opponent better than me? Like, these are all like things that get us, you know, in a heightened state of arousal, and nervousness and fear is part of that. So I think the more we also go, okay, you know what? I also signed up for tennis, not just to have, like, you know, la fun, but kind of like this feeling of like what's going to happen fun too. It's exciting. It's unknown. We don't know the outcome. And the more we embrace that as part of the fun, as fear as part of the fun, I think we can also handle our nerves a little better as well.
I agree. I think that, you know, as human beings, we like putting ourselves in positions of challenge, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. And we have to learn how to be confident under those circumstances where we feel uncomfortable, and that kind of feeds back to some other things that we'll talk as we get to the wrap up here. And I think the famous phrase is, "There's nothing to fear but fear itself." Right? So I have a student right now, and I'm not going to mention her, but she's a great kid, and she practices beautifully, fluidly, strokes the ball and everything, but she gets in matches, and right now she's got this challenge where she just tightens up, and she doesn't believe in her strokes enough to just let them go. And it's a challenge for me as a coach, and it's also certainly a challenge for her as a player, because she knows what she can do with the ball, but she gets out there and there's a prevailing feeling that she wants to win, and that she defaults back to what she knows. And it does get her victories at a certain level, but she's realizing that at the higher UTRs, it's not going to work. So we're working on that. So I'm looking forward to Jeff Greenwald coming down and seeing if we can have an impact. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Was there another question that came in, or a comment that I saw pop up in there?
It was a great comment from Christopher, who's, by the way, been a huge follower of a lot of our live streams, especially. And he says, you only have to control of yourself, your thoughts and actions, and learn how to be comfortable when you're uncomfortable. That's very, very good. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, and again, I think that taking the pressure off ourselves and realizing that the consequences of losing a match is not like losing a tier one or anything like that. So we just have to keep it in perspective, and that we're playing tennis for the joy of it, for the challenge of it, and for all those great healthy reasons. But we don't have to win to be successful in when we're playing. So
and here's one too. I'd like to take this one first, if you don't mind, and then have you, because I've kind of had an epiphany lately. So sorry if I joined late. But why is it that I'm great during practice, but fall apart during matches? Now, I can't speak for everybody that this is going to work for everybody, but I can tell you this worked for me. And I think it's a big missing link in adult tennis. Recently I read an article of when I was #1 in the state in New Jersey, and another person that trained at the same place with me was #2. So we got interviewed, 1 and 2. And one of the questions we got was, what's the hardest part about tennis? And my friend said, the matches are the hardest part. And at the time, my answer was, what? That's the easiest part. It was kind of interesting reading it back as an adult. I said, that's the easiest part. Practice is the hardest part. And reading it back now that I'm older and understand myself more, what I meant by that was my practices as a junior were scary. The guy made us do a lot of physical stuff, and then also mental. He was just a little different. You know, he could go from acting like a kid, feeding you balls, ask about how your day was going, and then you'd miss 3 in a row, and he would take his racket and he would throw it into the curtain. It was indoor, and the whole curtain would like go boom, like. So what I realized by that is, in practice I was scared. In matches I was also nervous, but I learned to kind of automate over the fear and execute through the fear, because at that point there was nothing that was going to happen in a tournament that could scare me more than my practices. And one of the things is, I'm an extremely positive coach, and I love coaching adults more than juniors. So I'm not going to, be yelling at my adult students, nor do I think many coaches should. I'm not going to be making you run sprints till you feel like you might throw up and everything. But I will tell you, a lot of junior tennis, there's a lot of scary coaches out there. And so I think a lot of kids out there have executed through fear. Now, whether this is the best approach or not, I do think that you want to figure out, okay, how can I add not necessarily fear into my practice, but how can you execute some pressure into your practice, something that challenges you emotionally, something that can create a butterfly, something that holds you accountable. Like, I interviewed John Stokey, who's also amazing, and he loves golf, and he says, we were talking about this, he says, yeah, like, I will go to the golf course, I'll put the ball out, and I say to myself, and he says, I want to golf, I want to have fun. If I make this putt, I get to go play for the rest of the day and shoot 9 holes. If I miss the putt, I got to get in the car and go home. Like, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about that might work for an adult, where I find that a lot of adults, they go to their lessons and the coach will get them to get, okay, your forehand was off this week. Oh yeah, my forehand was, okay, let's work it out. Let's smooth it out. Feed you some balls, get it working beautiful, give you a bunch of positives, like, oh my God, you look amazing. Yes, you feel better. Oh, I got it now. And then there's no pressure, there's no accountability, and then you just have a doctor feel good practice. Then you go out there, you get punched in the mouth a couple of times in the match, and your forehand's gone, because you never test your nerves in practice. And I think that is one huge missing link that is not in adult tennis. Your thoughts, sir?
Wow, that's great. There's a lot of angles to take on this, and I think that was a great question, and it's probably the most common challenge that most tennis players face. Is, I don't play as well in matches as I do in practice. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. Sometimes I just have my students say, you're going to play a tournament tomorrow. What is your objective? And what I try to do is say, look, remove the objective of winning and instead make the objective to perform well. Maybe the objective is to work on your slice backhand. Just go out and work on your slice backhand. Play every backhand with a slice backhand. Try to do things. Use the match as an experience to work on your skills and remove the pressure of having to win. And the outcome will take care of itself. That's one way of looking at it. That will help you quite a bit. It goes back to also overthinking. Like, if you're sitting there overthinking how to hit a ball, you're probably going to hit poorly. What you need to do is react, adapt to the ball, and just feel what you're doing. Don't think about how to hit a ball. Just feel yourself doing it, almost like you're a spectator who's watching. Because we get in our own way. We get in our way emotionally, where we're overthinking and we're trying too hard. And I think that's just another thing to think about. Don't try to overthink how to hit the ball. Don't think technically. Just relax and play. Just react to the ball, adapt to the ball, and feel yourself play it. And that's it. Otherwise, you're overthinking and making things way too complicated. So,
Okay.
if you don't know your fundamentals and you're out there guessing around, and if things get nervous, then you're definitely not going to play well. So you have to have confidence in what you're doing, and that confidence has to prevail over the pressure you're in, so that you can relax and play. So you have to make sure that your fundamentals are sound, I think, and whatever your fundamentals are, not your fundamentals, but your style is. And there's definitely a difference between style and or technique and fundamentals, right? So your individual style, just you play with your style, you relax, you play. Don't overthink it. Let me see if I had one other thing, a thought on this as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to, in order to be optimistic, you have to believe in what you're doing out there, so that you can let go and be free. And I think the other thing too is that when we play matches, we want to invest ourselves emotionally in the match. I'm sure Pete's been there many times, as have I. I'm so emotionally invested in the match from a tactical and strategic standpoint that I'm not even thinking about the past or the future. I mean, I've played matches and walked off the court and the wind was blowing 25 miles an hour and there were airplanes flying overhead. And people said, God, didn't those airplanes and that wind bother you? And I'm like, what airplane and winds? I don't even know. I'm just so immersed in the match. I'm invested in it to a level where I'm free to play. And that's where you actually find the zone, by the way. When you let go to the point where you're so immersed and so invested that you're free. That's when you actually hit that zone where you play and you walk off the court and you feel like you came off a ride at Disneyland with that buzzed feeling. And like, wow, that was amazing. Um, that comes from not overthinking. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, do we have a number 5 now? Are we up
number
to
5 really comes down to tactics and strategy, and it kind of dovetails into what I was just saying. You want to get to the point where you're able to problem solve on the court and assess what's going on. You want to get to the point where you establish patterns and you know when to break those patterns at critical junctures in the match. And you want to be thinking at a level that, again, removes you from the outcome or the past or what shot you could have made in the last set that would have changed the set or whatever, and instead be in a place where you're invested in what you're going to do next. When I was playing back in the days, early days. It's funny because we didn't even have racket bags. We had little covers over our rackets. So I had Jack Kramer autographs with 2 covers on them, and inside my cover, I had 3x5 cards, and my 3x5 cards, I had notes on them, and I used those as guidelines to guide me and coach me through the matches, and it helped me stay on track. And if I was struggling, I'd pull the cards out, and the first card said, "How well are you moving your feet today?" The next card said, "How well are you seeing the ball today? How well are you looking for the ball and playing the ball today?" The next card said, "What is your opponent's weakness?" And if you can assess what their weakness is by the 3rd game, what is your opponent's weakness? And then the next card said, "How are you going to play the next 2 games?" And then the next
Wow, this is awesome. This is so good.
Then the next card said, "Did you follow your strategy in the last 2 games? And did it work?" And then I had a series of like 10 cards, and they were my guidelines. So we go back to the matches, like you're in that state of mind where you're like, oh my God, I can't feel the ball. Who am I? I would just pull my cards out and sit there. Wait a minute, gosh, I'm not moving my feet like I know how to move my feet today. Gosh, I don't think I'm zeroing in on the ball like I should be zeroing in on the ball. Oh, my opponent's weakness is this. Oh, I'm going to do this for the next 2 games. Come back and assess. So you can self-coach yourself, but you just can't get lost out there in that space where you're not thinking about how to manage the match, problem solve, and really work on the puzzle, because every match is a puzzle. Different opponent, different conditions, different styles, all these things, different days. I'm different, and it's a puzzle, and you got to figure out that puzzle. So if you immerse yourself into that type of thought process, it makes you a much better player, a much better competitor. And it also removes a lot of the stress of winning and losing, and also the like how to hit the ball kind of thing where you're overthinking.
Yeah. I think you, okay, go ahead. You have more?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, you hit on a big one right there. You mentioned it a couple times. You talked about problems, fixing problems. And that's another thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is tennis is the ultimate problem-solving sport. And again, of course you want to play in the zone. Of course you want to hit the ball great. Like that's a given. We understand that. But when that becomes like the standard, and then when that's not happening, then again, I think this is when we tend to freak out mentally and feel like it's not our day. And unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of people where like things don't go well in the first 3 games and they start to get depressed because they're all excited about playing. They'll say things like, well, after that, I just wanted to get off the court and I wanted to get on with my day, and so the more you can embrace that, tennis, like you signed up for some problems that are going to come up. And if you like enjoy problem solving, you're going to love tennis because, let's think about tennis compared to so many sports. Hey, You got a basketball game today at 3. Well, what? It's always going to be 75 in the gym. There's no wind. Lights are usually exactly the same. Everything's the same. So many sports are set up to be, even though there's variables going on, tennis can have some of the most variables you're ever going to see. You go from one tennis court to the next, especially if you're playing like recreational league tennis. One court can be beautiful. Another one can have cracks in it. One day it can be 95 degrees. Another day you're out there all bundled up and it's, freezing and, 50 degrees out there, sometimes even 30 degrees, and you're still playing the match. Wind, pusher, hitter, like you name it, cheater, it's there. You playing great, you playing not so great. So the more you kind of go, okay, these are the problems today. Just like John had his little Rolodex of what's going on and how do I solve these problems. The more you go, okay, if problems come up, I know how to deal with these things. And the more you embrace that idea, then you kind of enjoy the challenges that come up in the match, rather than going, I hope everything was just going to be perfect and I'd be able to walk off the court and win 2-2 and tell my buddies I was in the zone. Like that is going to happen for you less than 10 times a year, no matter how much you prepare.
Yep.
Right. Federer, one of the greatest players of all time, gave one of the greatest commencement speeches this past year saying, as great as I won a little more than 50% of the points. So that's how it goes even when you're playing at that highest level and you're hitting the most mouth-watering shots that we'd all dream of. Federer was a lot better problem solver than we give him credit for just because he played so beautifully.
Sure. And I think that, these are all great points. And I think that when you're working like I used to work with my cards, I felt like I was my friend. And we feel a lot of times like we're on the court and we're criticizing ourselves and we're judgmental.
Huge.
We're actually our enemy then. We're actually defeating ourselves. But when you have a plan and a guideline, it helps you feel like you're talking to a friend. It feels like your coach is there. So it's really useful. And then, for example, if I was going to play Pete and my strategy was to tire him out, that's my strategy. What is my tactic going to be? Well, I'm going to try to hit from side to side and I'm going to drop shot and lob him. So my tactic is this, but my strategy, I have to know what my strategy is. Maybe that's based on the weakness. Now, how do I exploit that weakness? That's my tactic. And again, the more I zero in on what I'm doing, and I would do this on changeovers, I would go to the next 2 games with a specific plan. That keeps me on task. That keeps me on task to what I'm doing in the match, rather than letting a match slip away because I'm pissed off. You know what I'm saying? So you have to really, you're in charge, and you have to figure out how to manage yourself and be your friend and help guide yourself through these challenges that happen literally in almost every match we play. We had a comment come up about Taylor. What was that? Was Taylor beat himself in the U.S. Open?
Yeah, couldn't make himself come in the end and had Sinner at a disadvantage. Yeah, so yeah.
Well, I think that Taylor did. I think he did admit that he was tight in the beginning and didn't necessarily play that well, but it was more mental than I think than anything. I mean, he can ball strike with Sinner, although Sinner's pretty relentless. I mean, it's hard to get him to miss. It's amazing. He's one of those guys that can actually turn defense into offense so amazingly. He's kind of like a next generation of Djokovic, the way he can hit shots from awkward positions. We talked in the beginning today about keeping your balance and keeping your posture, but these guys can actually maintain balance and control the racket from even the most awkward positions, which is extraordinary. And so, but yeah, I thought that Fritz, he had a chance, but I think at the end of the day, I don't know that he had the self-belief to beat Sinner on that stage. So
yeah, I agree with that, and I think you're right. He can ball strike with Sinner to an extent, though. I mean, when you just see the next level is so small in our sport, right? Between number 1 and that's even the top 100, not even the top 10. But when you see it, you know it. And when you see Sinner, you're starting to realize, okay, this is the guy who's going to hit the ball a little harder out of the corner and more accurate. This is the guy who's not going to choke. This is the guy who's going to hit the right shot at the right time. They just seem to do it. And, it's just uncanny. And him and Alcaraz are starting to separate themselves in that area where you're like, you just see everything be a tiny bit more impressive, even though everybody's within the range. And I think that's where Sinner's not heading. That's where he is. And so as long as he stays healthy and Alcaraz stays healthy, you're going to see a lot of victories there. Now, I think the tour would take this any day of the week over what they've experienced over the last 20 years, which is Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic being in their prime. You know, even though those guys are clearly, these two are, I think, head and shoulders above the rest of the field, I think everybody would go, well, I'll deal with Sinner and Alcaraz over having to go through damn Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal. So it is more open, but at the same time, they're just a little bit where everybody else isn't. Okay, so can we go through, because I think this is great, for the late joiners, just recap all 5 points and maybe a couple sentences, a summary of all 5 points, and then we will call it a day. So
Okay.
Great job today, John.
Oh, thanks. So really, we started out just talking about, getting your strokes and getting your fundamental skills in order. And I quoted John Wooden, who basically, paraphrasing, said that you've got to really understand your fundamentals and embed them so that you can become free and they become natural, and then you can be creative. So I think everything starts with good fundamentals. I also mentioned Welby Van Horn, who sequenced tennis development as in strokes first, then shots, then strategy, then tactics, and so forth. So, if you feel uncertain about your strokes and you doubt your strokes, then I would be working on those. And then, partition your time, so you spend some time working on that, perhaps in an off season. Try to improve your strokes, then go back and play matches, because it's hard to blend the two together. After that, we talked about fitness and the importance of supporting good fundamentals with fitness. And fitness really is comprised of mobility and flexibility, strength, agility, and we can all improve in those areas. And the byproduct of that is also reducing the chances of having injuries. So the better your stroke fundamentals are, the better your physical fitness is. You can sustain your tennis for a long, long time, which is what we all want to do. So I would be focusing on those. Next up was really mental, and how the mental game is so critical. And I grew up around Michael and Carl Chang. By the way, I had the same coach when they were kids. I saw them a lot. I saw Michael when I first met Michael when he was 7 years old, and Michael and Carl were equal in skill. And Carl was a very good player, and he did play on the tour, but he never achieved what Michael did. But even when Michael was in the top 20, Carl could beat him in practice. He could take a set off of him. But when it came down to the money, Carl was not the money player that Michael was, and as great a player as he was, Michael just had that mental part dialed in. And even at age 7, he had the look in his eyes like, I'm never going to miss a ball.
Yeah. Can I? Yeah. That's a huge. And then I want you to wrap up with your thoughts with your list. Sorry to interrupt you, but first of all, I saw the movie Challengers. The movie is terrible. Okay, the movie is very cringy. But the thing that I did take away from it, which is so true, like you're saying, Michael Chang is an American tennis player we're not going to forget for a long time. His brother, we just thought of him as being in the stands supporting Michael. We never thought, well, he's a great player too. You're saying that, even when Chang was playing very high level tennis, Michael was playing very high level tennis, his brother Carl could beat him. You go see Challengers, they're best buddies who grow up together, and one makes it and is a millionaire and won a lot of Grand Slams. The other one is a challenger pretty much his whole life. Occasionally breaks in and gets to play a major and then sinks back to a challenging level. By the start of, which is basically the end of both of their careers, but near the beginning of the movie, the guy shows up to a challenger tournament and is sleeping in his car. Like, that to me really summed up pro tennis. You can have two people so close, more close than you can possibly imagine in skill level, shot making ability, and everything. And one person is living on a life of luxury, and the other person can barely afford to buy a burger unless they, came from like a rich family that still kind of supports their dream. So, let me get this real quick. This is Mom. Mom?
Yes.
I'm finishing. I'm coming. I'm finishing up a live stream. So say hello to everybody. There's about 100 people on.
Hi, Mom.
And
Hi. Hi, everyone.
And she says hello. I love you. I will be there soon. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Bye. Okay.
That was
So let's wrap this up for Mom.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just think you got to work on your mental game. And I think that that's so critical. And it's the part of your game that we can't see as coaches necessarily. So, get with a mental coach. And I did mention Jeff Greenwald as being one of the premier mental coaches in the game. He's also a great player. And he can certainly help you with that. He's got an online course that you can tap into as well. And if it's not Jeff, then someone else. But just keep focusing on your mental game. And then finally, the sum total of that is that you're able to be a strategic and tactical player with that you play tennis with a high level of intelligence, if you will, not just hitting balls around hoping something good's going to happen, but you actually play with a sense of purpose, and you manage yourself well on the court. You have self-belief and confidence because you have good stroke technique. You feel fit. You're mentally in the right frame of mind, and then you can actually problem solve and execute and win more matches, which is really the challenge and the fun of it. We want to win more matches. We want to achieve a higher level of tennis and see how good we can get. And to me, those are really the 5 pillars of achieving that. So, yeah,
good stuff. Well, John, this was great. Again, if you're like, man, John's a pretty smart guy. He's a good coach, nice guy. Gave me a lot of value today. Then you can learn a lot more from John by going to Performance Plus Tennis and look at his new beautiful website. Make sure you also get on his email list, because then you'll be getting exclusive content, free content, and then also you can take deeper dives with him on stuff he's doing. Is there anything else you want to let us know today before we take off?
Yeah, real quick. I do for my students, both online and locally, is I do an assessment. I have an assessment plan or tool, and it's what you can print out. So if you go to my website and go under Contact Me and go in there and say, "Hey, John, I'd love to get your skill assessment planner," which covers all these elements of tennis, by the way, I will gladly send it off to you, email it off to you. Okay. The other thing I do, which I love to do, is I do a lot of video analysis on strokes. So for watching today, the first 10 viewers that go to my website, contact me through the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page and say, I'd love to get my serve, assessed and get an assessment on my serve. I will go ahead and follow that up, show you how you can submit a video very conveniently and efficiently, and I will assess your serve for you. Okay.
Okay. So you see that, guys? Go to Contact Me, email address, subject, your message, submit the form. That's how you get in touch with them. So again, go to performanceplustennis.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, hit Contact Me. Then you'll see this nice, charming young man right there with his racket. And he's saying he's there to help you. You fill all this out. You submit the form. Boom. Now all of a sudden, John is going to be there for you. So make sure you do that. Also, make sure you head on over. I saw that we actually had, I believe it was Mark Stein. I want to thank you. I don't know if you were watching this live stream today, decided to sign up, get your free ticket to TennisCon. But you did. Then you upgraded to a lifetime pass. And there's already a bunch of bonus videos in there that Mark, who signed up for a lifetime pass, not only will he get lifetime access to TennisCon 8 when everything starts rolling, but he's already got probably got 25 videos that are amazing like this that he can start, binge watching today since he upgraded to lifetime. So you go over to tenniscon8.com, you get your free ticket, and then if you want to go deeper and make sure that you get to own everything for life, you can after you sign up, you can upgrade for the lowest possible price to a lifetime pass. So thank you so much for today, John. This was awesome, and we'll see everybody on the next video.
Yeah, real quick, Pete, I just want to say thank you. Pete is definitely one of the, he's an amazing coach. I love his enthusiasm. He plays a big role in tennis, both online and locally, where he does all these clinics and things. Special guy, and I really appreciate knowing you and appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And we'll see you all at TennisCon 8. I look forward to it.
Okay, guys, have a great day.
Thanks. Take care.